Right. Welcome to all the students present over in this session. This is the second lecture on the management science. Previous session we have discussed about the introduction, the course objectives and the course outcomes. And the first lecture part, that is the scope, nature and the importance of the management science, we have been discussed. Now coming to the second lecture, we will get into the slide. The second lecture, it is about the discussions upon general functions of management, principles of management and evolution of management as such. Now these are the three parameters which we are going to discuss in the second lecture. One, what are the functions which are general, which been attained or been applicable in all the areas. Second, principles of management. The terminology principles of management has two different understanding. Normally we call as a principles of management, this is a topic, whereas when we go into the subject we have again a smaller topic which is called as a principles of management. Clear? Now coming to the third one, that is the evolution of management. Evolution of management, that where the management had been started, how it had been started and what was the development in the management as such, that is what is the evolutions of management. We will see all those three parameters in depth. Now coming to the general functions, the general functions are the first one, functions with related to post-corp, and under the post-corp we have the first one which is called as planning, second one is organizing, third the staffing, and the D is directing, CO is coordinating or controlling, and R is reporting, and B is budgeting. Now these are the main important functions of general functions of the management. As said, the post-corp, this is being given by an renowned person, right, Ruther Gulick, and similarly the functions are being given by different management principle or management authors in a different manner. Now we have been discussing about the functions given by Ruther Gulick, and under those we have the first and foremost which is called as planning, and the planning is the first and foremost level which we need to attain in any case of an organization. And example to kind of a planning, if I take three countries of that particular level, one with American and the second with the Japanese people and the third one with Indian people. Now all these three people do a different level of planning initiation as such. Now if we see in case of Japanese people, the ratio of percentage of planning, they stand at almost 80 to 20%. That means they do 80% of the planning and remaining 20% they do concentrate on the implementation part. If you take in case of American people, they have a 50:50 ratio. That means 50% they do the planning and remaining they have the implementation process. But in case of Indian, we have only 20-80 principle, where 20 is percentage of the planning, remaining 80% is for the implementation part. Now that is the reason we can see that when the projects have been having a failure, the number of projects having a failure is mostly in case of Indian country as such. We cannot find that number of failure projects in case of Japanese, and it is comparatively less in case of the Americans as such. So this planning is the foremost important point in case of any of the organization where the highest level of concentration has to be done. And first step where we say the planning, if it goes wrong, then definitely the implementation will have and wrong in all other areas as such. Clear? Now the second function is organization. Organization is what? It is about the organizing in the form of a structure from the top level to the bottom level. What is the hierarchy, who is reporting to whom, and what kind of the subordination level has the power, all such is been defined in case of organizing as such. Now if this organizing is not framed in a manner, then the possibility of going to the third level doesn't, it becomes a difficulty as such. Now what is the third level? Third level is what? S. S stands for staffing as such. That means if we have a problem in terms of organizing structure, then if the structure is not been defined well, then the other areas or other levels of the functions get defected as such. That is, the staffing, directing, controlling, reporting and budgeting as such. Now, similarly, when we are going for the third level, that is staffing. Before the staffing, we have been in the level of organizing. So, organizing is about the structure of the organization, what we are going to frame, and in the structure of organization, we have a different levels of organization structure that stands with line organization structure, line and staff organization structure, matrix level organization structure, or the other levels of organization structure, where it has or it defines about the roles and responsibility of the superior and the subordinate as such. Clear? That is what we do in case of organizing. So, that means it gives a skeleton of the complete structure of the organization, that what we are going to derive in that particular levels as such. Now, coming to the third point, it is the staffing as such. Now, just now we have been discussed about the level of staffing. Staffing stands for, right, the staffing stands for, right, the staffing stands for the third point, and the staffing is about the recruitment of the employees at the different level, and how we are going to recruit, all it is been derived. Now, while we are deciding about the staffing level, it attains or it explains about the skill sets what is required at the staffing as such, and it also defines that what levels we are going to recruit. So, based upon the level of recruitment and based upon the specialization of the recruitment, it makes us understanding what type of employees to be recruited. That happens in case of staffing. And staffing, it also makes us to understand that how many employees are also to be required as such. So, the organization structure, when it is been defined, it makes simpler for us to do the next level of the step, which is called as the staffing as such. Now, coming to the next one, the directing stands with the fourth point. In the process of the directing, we appoint the employees at the different designation, where they are supposed to report and to whom they are supposed to report. Now, while they are given the details about that, whom they are supposed to report and where they are supposed to report, that defines the clarity upon the structure, and finally, it leads to us a more better organization structure as such. Now, the next to the directing, it is about the coordinating as such. Now, what does the coordination stands upon? The coordination makes the overall cohesiveness among the top level management to the last level of the low level management, because this coordination, though we have the first one, planning, organizing, staffing and directing, the coordinating will make us to enable the cohesiveness among the employees at all the levels as such. Now, when we are doing that coordination at the highest level, then definitely an organization can have a better performance levels as such. Now, similarly, when we have done the coordination with not only within the department level, but also from one department to other department, because when an employee is working, they are working for that organization. We cannot split up to a department level, or we cannot split up to a unit level as such. So, the employees who are working with an organization, they all need to have a coordination not only with the department level, but also to the higher level of the organization as such. That will lead to more better performance of the organization. Now, coming to the next point, that is the reporting. In case of reporting, we will be delivering or giving the information from the superior to the upper levels as such. That means, a subordinate will report to the superior about what his performance is and how his performance is. That is what is the delivery of the work which has been given to them, to make them that they have been done this. Now, in case of that, if they have been not fulfilled to that, then what kind of the steps need to be taken is also been done in case of last level. So, what do we do in case of the other steps? The other steps, we actually try to rectify the errors what we have done in the previous levels of performing of the task. That means, after we do our task, after we do our work, the work is been reported to the superiors, and after the work is been reported to the superior, what is the completion of work task? That means, how much the task is been completed. So, once the assumption of the task is been done, once the calculation of the task is been done, then ultimately they will try to understand about the deficiency, and according to that particular deficiency they will provide about the remedial actions towards that particular process. Budgeting is about the allocation of the financial requirement of funds. Now, in case of budgeting, what extent of the budget will be incurred at different levels. Now, in case of budgeting, each and every department will have a certain level of the amount to be spent over. Now, which department and the areas of the department where they are having an expenditure, it is all been calculated, because all this budget has to be calculated at the topmost level of the organization to allocate the funds towards the organization as such, because the budget is the one which makes the smooth functioning of the company to run, because without the allocation of the budget the company may have a sudden decrease in terms of performance level. So, preoccupied level of budgeting has to be done, and we all know that budgeting is about calculating of the expenditure for an upcoming year or calculating about the revenue of the upcoming year. That means we do calculate both, that is the expenditure and revenue for the upcoming year, that is a proposal or an expectation of what is that it is going to happen. Now, that gives an idea that where we are supposed to be tracked and where we are supposed to be correct. That means once we have done the calculation of the budget, it gives us an insight in terms of correcting measures as such. Now, coming to the next one, this process is about the explanation of the same, that is the functions, generic functions. The generic functions, how it is been explained by different authors as such. We have been discussed about the Luther Gulick, that is the POSCOB we have been discussed. Under the POSCOB, we have explained about the process of only the POSCOB as such. That means we have understood only the POSCOB. The same general functions or generic function is being given by different authors in different manner. When we take in case of Henry Foyle, he has given planning, organizing, commanding, coordinating and controlling as such. This is the different method given by Henry Foyle. Whereas, in case of Kuntz, it is been given in another manner, that is planning, organizing, staffing, leading and controlling as such. So, all the authors are seen that the first and foremost stands with planning only, right, though they have been having an internal other levels of processing, but the first and foremost level which have been common to them is what is called as a planning. So, planning is the most important function, generic function among any implementation of an organization. Now, in case of the Luther Gulick itself, we have seen that coordinating can be said also in the form of a controlling. So, we can have a replication of, instead of coordinating, we can also do call that as a controlling as such. Now, coming to the next one, the second point that is of the particular lecture, that is evolution of management thoughts. Under the evolution of management thoughts, the first one, there are evolution of the management has been classified into 4 criteria or 4 generations or 4 periods. That is what been classified. Among that, the first and foremost is about the management awakening period as such, right, management awakening period. Now, under that, the initiation of automation, second one increased demand and third expansion. So, we would discuss about the awakening period. What do we mean by awakening period is that was the start of management getting known to the whole world. Before that, management was practiced, but it was not practiced as a profession. So, from this period onwards, management was being practiced as a kind of a profession itself. Now, who had started or by whom it had been started? Most renowned person, that is F.W. Taylor and Henry Foyle. These are the 2 people who are most renowned or made the management sciences known to the whole world as such. Now, who these people are? These 2 people are from the department of mechanical, and they have been actually been working with the organization. They found out that there is a deficiency in the performance of the workers, and because of the deficiency of the performance of the workers, they try to make that working levels as a standardization. So, you can understand that the first and foremost level of management awakening period had been from standardization of the work. Now, why the standardization of the work? Because once you standardize, that can be made to assess any work, or it can be assessed for someone's performance as such. That is why it is called as the standardization is the most important point for the enablement of management principles as such. Now, we have understood something about the awakening period, that the start. Now, getting into the process, automation, right. The first point is automation. Automation is what? Any product which involves with related to controlling by the self of the machinery without the involvement of an employee, that is called as an automation. That means, if somewhere, some point, if an individual is not required to do some process or production, then that is called as an automation. Now, automation had been initiated once there had been a start of the involvement of computers as such. Now, after the involvement of computers, the automation had become more higher and higher. In those days it was the initiation, but in today's generation it is completely automation than the man works which are being worked in the organizations as such. Clear? Now, second one, increased demand. Now, increased demand is what? The demand had been increased day by day from the requirement of the population or the customers. Now, since the demand had been increased, the purpose of the production also had been become more and more. That means, since the demand has been more and more, the manufacturing or the production also has become more and more. So, for the purpose of making the manufacturing, the requirement of the awakening period and the requirement of automation has become a kind of an sign to understand what we can do in terms of increasing the profitability towards the organization as such. That is why the demand is also one of the parameter which has been raised during the awakening period as such. And third point, expansion. Expansion is connected to the organization. Now, how it is connected to organization? Expansion is connected to the organization by expanding their manufacturing unit from a smaller level to bigger level. That means, they wanted to expand the market, and why? To meet out the demand what there is needed. Why? Because they do not want to lose the demand where it has been existing, to make some profitability by expanding by themselves. That was the reason expansion was also during those days had been more as such. Now, ultimately what does that mean happening over there? Expansion, since the demand had been existent, the purpose of the expansion of the same organization had been some light thrown upon the organizations as such. Now, these are the three important points with related to management awakening period, that is during the start of management principles known to this world. That is the first level. Now, next to that, the second one, it is the scientific management period. Under the scientific management period, we have two, that is the F.W. Taylor and Henry Fayol as such. Now, under the Henry Fayol and the first one, F.W. Taylor and the Henry Fayol. F.W. Taylor is known as the father of management, and Henry Fayol is known as the father of modern management. Both are the most important renewed names known to the society or known to the world, and these two are the people who made the complete management known to the world as such. Before that, number of people have been made an attempt, like Charles Babbage, these people and all made an attempt, but actually they have been failed in terms of making their name known to the society as such. But these two people had made the name known to the whole world by the means of F.W. Taylor and the Henry Fayol as such. Now, F.W. Taylor is one who has written or named as a management which is called as a scientific management, and Henry Fayol is a person who has named his theory as the principles of management. That the principles of management is about Henry Fayol. Now, this principles of management consist of 14 principles, and scientific management consists of 4 principles as such. Now, F.W. Taylor under the FW Taylor, the first and foremost application is standardization of the work, right? Because the workers they worked over in the organization, they actually failed to work, right? They actually failed to work productively. To make them productive, FW Taylor has initiated the process of making the standardization of the work, and based upon the standardization of the work, the actual time is being standardized, and that standardized is being calculated to make an attempt for all the employees to work with that particular standardization time. Now, whoever has been able to meet that standardization time, they were performing employees, and those who have been not able to meet to that particular standardization time, they were being non-performing employees as such. So, what they did? They actually made those employees who were not able to meet that particular performance level to get trained to that level, or to get motivated to that level, and to get adapted or to learn the skill set to according to that particular levels as such. That is what happened in case of FW Taylor. Now, Henry Fayol principle, what he has suggested is scientific management is specifically with related to the production, or it is only to the level of the production department as such, whereas Henry Fayol wanted to implement the principle not only the production department, for all the departments or administrative levels as such. That is why the 14 principles of Henry Fayol is about the application of the principles with related to administrative management. That means it is not confined to the production department alone, but it is even more to other departments which are more at a higher level, that is at the administrative management. If one can control the administrative management, or if one can have an understanding about the administrative management, then definitely there is very much possible to have a more performance from the organization at all the levels as such. That is what has been said by Henry Fayol, right? Now, third one, the human relations period. This is the third stage next to the scientific management. Under the human relations stage, what it was been done or how it had been evolved is, these are the areas where we have been discussed about the department's employees performance only. Never we have considered about the employees requirement or employees relations. Now, that generation of the process had been done in case of the third level, which is called as the human relations period. Now, what is that happened in those period? The companies have thought that if we give the importance to the human, then definitely the performance of the organization can be brought to the higher level. Now, we can also say that these are the duration actually where an employee or a human was being considered as a resource, right? We can say that the HR department had been given more importance from the period of the human relations period as such. So, we can say that under the process of human relations period, that the HR has been more recognized from the duration of the human relations period. Now, in the human relations period, the two parameters which have been given consideration is human factor and the human behavior. Human factor and the human behavior, they have understood that if they do the importance or give the consideration for the human factor or human behavior, then the overall performance of the organization can be increased to a large extent as such. That was the study, or that was the initiation where it has been done in the relations period as such. Now, next to the human relations, it had been the fourth one, that is the modern management period. So, under the modern management period, they have gone beyond the human relations. That means human relations importance is alone not sufficient. We need to develop the next level of requirement, which is called as a modern management, and under the modern management, they have been understood about the dynamic of the business environment. That means it is a collective effort of implementation of intelligence, that is a kind of an human implications, kind of an systems implication, system approach implication, all put together. They wanted to make it more dynamic, and ultimately the modern management have been the last level of the current management generations as such. So, under this process of modern management generation, we are been able to implement a large extent of the system development in many of the organizations. And this generation or this kind of a period is where we have seen the changes of implementation of the systems in the organizations, like the implementation of the business intelligence, the implementation of the artificial intelligence, and the implementation which is going to happen in the future, which is about the cloud, and the furthermore which is about the industry 4.0. Now, these are the new generations which are going to get implemented in the modern level, and ultimately it is going to see a large change in the last level as such. So, as seen that, we would understand a recollection of the slide. The management is been classified into 4 areas. The first one is an awakening period, second one is a scientific management period, third one is a human relation period, and the fourth one is a modern management period. Now, we are at the last level, which is at the modern management period, which has been ruled mostly by the systems applications as such, right. We will go to the next slide.